Hello friends, promises that he's voluntarily incelibate here, bringing you another Dota 2 video on behalf of Dota Alchemy, and in this video we're going to be discussing the many buzzwords of Dota and what do they actually mean. Buzzword number 1, Power Spike. This basically means when somebody gets a particular level or item that gives them a huge spike in power. So to give you an example, Lifestealer picking up Radiance, or Tidehunter getting his Ravage at level 6. Buzzword number 2, Come Online. This is basically another way of saying power spike, except it's a power spike where somebody is essentially shit up until that point. So you could say OD doesn't really come online until he gets a BKB. Spectre doesn't really come online until she gets a Radiance. Buzzword number 3, Map Control. Map control usually just refers to when one team has the control of the majority of the map, and what that means is essentially if the enemy team enters into that area of the map, the majority of the map, they're going to die. So you could say in this game, for example, that the Radiant side, they have map control in this game. Buzzword number 4, Apply Pressure. Applying pressure essentially means to occupy an area of the map with strong heroes on your team, such that the enemy team feels a sort of pressure in that area. So you could say that in this particular game, the Radiant is applying pressure to this bottom tier 2 tower. You can also apply pressure to high ground, to an area where there's not even an objective, or to a hero. Buzzword number 5, Vision Control. Vision control just basically means that you have control of the majority of the vision on the map, aka you have one team that has a lot of sentries placed and they're dewarding the other team. You have one team that has a gem, so they're dewarding the other team. The other team is just too scared to leave their base, so they're not getting wards down. The team with more wards on the map has vision control in the game. Buzzword number 6, Tempo Controller. This essentially just refers to a hero that's really good at killing other heroes in the game, especially early on into the game, where essentially they set the pace of the game by killing or not killing enemy heroes at particular times. So you could say that Tiny, for example, or Queen of Pain or Puck, these heroes are tempo controllers because if they're killing people, the game will be fast-paced. If they're not killing people, the game will be slow-paced. Buzzword number 7, Lane Presence. This is a buzzword that was invented to describe somebody's ability to contribute during the laning phase. Pudge, for example, has a terrible lane presence because he just feeds and is useless, whereas somebody like, let's say, Darkseer has a very good lane presence because Iron Shell is one of the best abilities in the game during the laning stage. Buzzword number 8, Zoning, which is also sometimes referred to as harassing to some degree. And this is essentially just hitting somebody and pushing them out of a particular area. This is not necessarily just a laning stage concept. You can zone somebody if you're sieging high ground and you don't want like an Earthshaker, for example, to blink and then Echo Slam you. You can zone somebody in the laning phase. You can zone somebody from a particular objective or zone somebody so they don't deward a ward. Zoning can happen anywhere, and it's a very useful thing to just say, okay, we need to zone this Earthshaker or he's going to wipe us. We need to zone this support Lich or he's going to deward us. Buzzword number 9, Gank. Now this is one that most people probably know, but I felt like it had to be mentioned here just because I think it's one of the most useful buzzwords in Dota when you actually use it when it needs to be used, and that's because it essentially refers to killing somebody, but in a kind of subtle / stealthy way. And the reason that's important in this game is because just running your face at enemy heroes is a terrible way to kill people. So having a word that describes doing it in a stealthy manner that is ubiquitously understood is incredibly good for just generating good gameplay. So you could say in this replay, for example, that the Ursa and the Shadow Demon, they ganked the Brewmaster because he wasn't expecting them to run at him and kill him. Buzzword number 10, Roaming. Once again, this is a buzzword that is pretty ubiquitously understood, but you have to consider that back probably, I don't know, 2 to 3 years ago, having a roamer wasn't really a thing. Like, people kind of recently invented this concept, and this is the concept of having a hero that doesn't really exist in any lane. It's like moving between the lanes, looking for an opportunity. Not necessarily ganking, but just roaming between the lanes and looking to see if an opportunity presents itself, which in this particular situation, you could say the Nyx Assassin roamed mid, he sat mid for a little bit, and then an opportunity presented itself. So if you say to your teammate, I'm roaming mid, it doesn't necessarily mean, hey, let's kill mid. It just means I'm going to be in the area, and maybe we can set something up on this mid laner. Buzzword number 11, CS. CS is an initialism that stands for creep score, which is just referring to the amount of last hits and denies that you have. This is something that can be used as both a verb and a noun. So you can say, hey, Brewmaster, what is Ursa's CS? You know, is he doing well in terms of last hits and denies, basically? And then you can also say, Brewmaster, how are you CSing top? Or you can communicate to your team, hey guys, I know you're losing your lanes, but we're CSing very well top, so don't worry about it. So that's it for this video, but this video is actually part 1 of a 2-part series, where in the second part, I'm going to be covering the buzzwords that professional players use in-game. So a lot of these buzzwords, such as tempo control, pressure, lane pressure, whatever you want to call it, these aren't that useful for during games. They're very useful for talking about the complicated concepts of the game, but if you're in a Dota game and you're saying, hey, I'm going to tempo control, people are like, what are you talking about? However, there are buzzwords that are used in games by professional players that are incredibly useful. So that will be the second part of this series. If you can think of any buzzwords that I didn't mention here that a lot of analysts and casters use, please make sure to comment below. I am interested in that. I think I probably missed a lot of them because there's a lot of buzzwords in Dota. But anyway, thank you for watching. I do appreciate it, and I hope to see you in another video.